This is the Nomad Futurist Podcast, a podcast about the evolution of technology, society, and transformation. Connect with us, share your thoughts with us at nomadfuturist.com. Let's get this started. Here are Phil and Nabeel.
Hello. This is Nabeel Mahmood, your host at Nomad Futurist from Kona, Hawaii.
This is Philip Collins, your co-host from Brooklyn, New York.
And this is Dominique Luchart from Los Angeles, California.
Dominique, thank you very much for joining us at Nomad Futurist. So let's start a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you're at in your career, and how you got there.
All right. Well, I am an author. I wrote primarily in the science fiction arena. And I am a futurist looking ahead at trends and what is coming on the horizon for all of us on the planet. Background is in film. So I was a filmmaker and producer for quite a few years. I have a Juris Doctor degree. I've worked also as a creative director in advertising and marketing.
Very interesting background. Would you tell us a little bit about some of the books that you published, or something that our readers should actually look into and read as they start learning a little bit more about you?
Well, one of the things that I've done is after writing, a lot of commercials, I wanted to really write content. And so I moved towards more filmmaking with screenwriting and produced seven independent films. But in the process, I realized that I really loved the long form of writing a book, and also the idea of actually being able to create a whole world on the pages. And so I transferred my skills from screenwriting to authoring a book, and I focused on science fiction because that's the future for me. That's where I pretty much live in terms of what's coming to the forefront for all of us in trends and patterns, mostly patterns, taking a look at what's happening right now globally, digitally, and so on. And so I created a saga series called NEWDAWN and published the first prequel of the series, which is called NEWDAWN Roamers.
Right. I mean, what's interesting, I think you'd probably be the only person to fit into the category, certainly that we've ever had on the show, but trying to think of, author, filmmaker, lawyer, and futurist. I mean, those things tend not, so I guess author and filmmaker, kind of go together because, storytelling. The lawyer thing is a totally separate bucket. And then the futurist element is incredibly unique. Was there something in your background that drew you to technology and I guess that, inspired you to focus on science fiction as what you're writing?
Well, when I was growing up, I read a lot of sci-fi, and I loved it because it allowed me to really spread out in terms of what we're used to, going further in the boundaries that we have in our own minds and create this wonderful focus as to what is going to happen, what if this were to happen, or what if this were to happen. And so for me, as I read more and more authors in the sci-fi genre, I found a home, and I found the ability to just relate to tomorrow. And that's shaped probably the way I view the world today and how I got from the Juris Doctor, the law, which I didn't really want to practice, but which has really created an enormous background for me in terms of experience and knowledge. And going to the filmmaking, you soon realize that with the transformation of technology and everything that is going on with the global digital landscape today, the traditional movie making distribution system, if you want, would no longer be available. And I saw that about, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, which gave me access to looking at new technology to develop whatever content I would create and try to reach an audience differently. And that's where it came about.
Where do you think we're headed? I mean, particularly with COVID-19 and being stuck.
It's definitely speed things up for us in terms of the digital changes that we are seeing happening today. Whereas, so far the infrastructure that we have has been changing slowly globally to things that we don't even see yet because they're not all implemented. But the infrastructure that we used to live in 10, 15, 20 years ago is no longer applicable today. And with COVID, we have seen a drastic transformation very, very quickly, shortly, where you've seen a lot of jobs being lost and they won't come back. You've seen the changes in online becoming the mode of communication and networking globally. You see a lot more usage of data infrastructure, as you see as well the social ability to reach out to people and basically connect with them via that technology. So that's us. This is the new normal. This is what we're going to be faced with for the next 15 years. And even, tomorrow, what we're going to see happen is changes in transportation, whereby we no longer need to go to work with our cars. We can work from home. We can work from a hotel room. We can work in a taxi because very soon we're no longer going to be driving ourselves. This is happening today. And one of the things you asked me to debug the tech. I think the main thing for me is that we thought tomorrow was going to be tomorrow, but really tomorrow is today because of the changes that are being implemented now. And it's so fast and so deep that I don't think we're ready for it. And that's the problem. How do you get ready for transformation of this scope and magnitude?
We have had a previous conversation as well. We are at that chasm where things have actually just started to accelerate because of the adoption rate and the fact that it's easily accessible, available. And the generations that are in play right now have a much broader understanding of how technology and platforms work and how easy it's actually making everyone's life. Do you believe that that's actually simplified the adoption rate and the fact that now working from home, working from anywhere, autonomous becoming muscle memory will define and accelerate the whole process as we move into 2025, 2095?
Definitely. I think that, there are two segments of the population that are touched by this and reacting differently to it. One is the young generation, which is really adapting very quickly and very easily to what we see online today. They're used to that. They grew up in it. They had a computer at their fingertips at age 6 or 7 or 8. And so today they know how to navigate this landscape. The older population, the population of the baby boomers, in effect, is going to be touched much more by that than anyone else, because either they adapt, or I hate to say it, they're going to be bypassed. And if they are bypassed, unfortunately, a lot of the jobs that were there even 5 months ago are no longer going to be there for them in the near future. So there is a shift in skill sets that needs to take place. Whether or not some people can adapt to that is the question.
What's amazing is had this happened, had like COVID-19 and this type of pandemic happened, say 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I think we would be facing like a much steeper uphill climb than we find ourselves today, because, while this clearly accelerated everyone's digital transformation and usage of things like telemedicine and things like this, Zoom, Google Hangouts, all that in terms of, how we communicate with each other, the notion that the underlying infrastructure is actually there, it's in place, and it's just about, people, adopting it and getting comfortable with it is fairly unique, don't you think?
Yes. And definitely the acceleration had we not been in 2020, and had we been 10, 15 years ago, we would have found ourselves so much more isolated in view of the pandemic.
And by the same token, I mean, would there have been, as drastic as a fall off? I mean, right now you see jobs. You just assume that jobs, whether it be in hospitality or in these other industries that, have a difficult time coping in times of a pandemic, people are just saying those jobs may not come back anymore. Certainly in large cities like New York, when you have restaurant closures that have been closed, for 3 or 4 months, there's just no scenario where, many of those restaurants are going to reopen. So you think that there's going to be, a permanence to a lot of those job losses where you have people that are going to have to rethink their, the industry that they're in and their careers. And if we were 20 years ago, things were just moving at a slower pace. So yes, we would be more isolated, but it probably, we wouldn't probably be, changing at as rapid a pace as we are today, based on the fact that, you can almost see the future because the infrastructure is there.
Yeah, I mean, companies have the ability to adapt. And they are doing that. 50% of the restaurants will no longer reopen. I mean, they've already come out with those numbers, and it's huge, which means that 50% of the population working in restaurants are going to fundamentally lose their jobs, and they won't find them back. We have here in the U.S. alone over 4 million unemployed people. If all the jobs that were there 5 months ago, 4 months ago, 3 months ago, no longer are available in 2 months from now, that's probably a huge impact on the nation's economy, as well as for people, who need to find jobs so that they can go ahead and survive and pay their bills and live and take care of their families. So that transition is going to be really, really important. Now, how do we transition from non-technology jobs to technology jobs that will have new positions available for people as they reskill is really going to be the question. How do we find that help for everybody so that they can say, okay, I'll step into the digital world, even if that was not my background, and I will learn so I can get the new jobs out there. So yeah, that's a huge problem. And it's not just a problem for the US, it's a problem for the entire world, because that is what is happening everywhere. Europe is fundamentally completely transitioning to a lot of jobs being lost. India is completely down economic-wise. I mean, everything has just plummeted. We don't know what's going to happen with China, with what's going on right now with their new bubonic plague. It's like, where does it stop? Where does it stop? It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
There's sometimes we have people on the show and we're like, if you were king for a day, or you're the president, how would you suggest that we go about dealing with some of these concerns? We don't have to do that with you. You are a creator of worlds. You are a writer, a filmmaker. If this was a blank canvas and you were going to write the story of how you make the transition from bubonic, plague attacks mankind. The world as we know it is no longer here. You're the storyteller. How does that story end? Like in a perfect world that you create, what happens?
A perfect world that I would create, AI would already be running our infrastructure. AI would provide people who do not have the digital knowledge and information and skills with the support that they need so they can transition into the new world. AI would be telling our government, hey, don't hold on those paychecks that are not going out because you have a overcrowded system so that you can help people. In a perfect world, we would not have a healthcare problem because we would have implants that would monitor our health and avoid any kind of issues that could eliminate life, so that's the perfect world. Now we're not there, obviously, but implants are already here today. You see, in London, for instance, they've been able to use vision implant to help blind people see in black and white some of the forms and shapes so that they can move around their environment better. It's the beginning, but it's here. And science and technology are doing some great things, but at the same time, science and technology are not perfect. Neither are we. So we have to keep an eye on what we're doing for the future. We have to make some choices in terms of how do you use AI? How do you use robotic? How do you use nanotechnology? How do you use biogenetics in the future so that we don't lose ourselves? For the first time in the history of mankind, we have the ability to change ourselves. Up until now, we've changed our environment to suit us better. But now we're dealing with the machines, and to keep up with the machines, we're going to have to be better. And in order to be better, to go faster, to have more memory processing capabilities, to do the things that we may need to do, we will probably have implants.
In your saga of the future, do you see mankind reliant on computers, technology, robotics?
Very much. Very much. We become almost symbiotic with the machine. Yeah.
At that point in time, do you have a concern as it entails to robots taking over the world?
Definitely. I mean, look, it's not so far-fetched. Not that long ago, scientists turned on 17 AI machines, and they realized after some experiment that the machine began talking to themselves, excluding the human element. So they had to turn them off. This is happening today. So imagine once we, really open up the floodgate to the new technology possibilities, how do we manage from a moral standpoint so that we maintain our humanity? How do we manage the changes that are going to take place over the next 75, 80 years? And that's the big issue. How do we use ethical standards, values, human traits and characteristics to help us navigate what's coming? And that's the big question for everybody, from scientists to geneticists to technology experts to world leaders.
Yeah, so being technologist, and I'll speak for myself, robots, computers are binary. They talk ones and zeros. So the option is yes or no. There's no maybe. That basically eliminates that emotional intelligence, or the human intelligence. AI taking over the world, I don't believe in it. I really don't.
Okay, let me ask you a question then, because that's very interesting to me. If you don't believe that AI can take over the world, if AI manages our entire infrastructure, which it will happen because it's already doing it to a degree, you have drone flying with AI navigation. You have AI computer, basically starting to crunch up data so that we devise patterns and so on and so forth. If you have an AI network underneath our entire social infrastructure, talking about food supply, distribution, transportation, climate change, and managing and monitoring climate control element under cities, smart city domes. If you have Flybot, Skyhair, everything that is basically technologically oriented to make our lives better in the future, what stops it from becoming more human? Well, yeah, but if we have implants...
See, here's the thing. The human is in control. Now, the human is in control. Human is in control. Human is the one that's actually making it good or the evil. Robots don't have a sense of judgment. Robots are programmed to do certain tasks. I love these conversations. Artificial intelligence is nothing other than repeating a task that we as humans don't want to do. So data mining.
I agree. Okay. But when you say people, robot taking over the world versus people managing and supervising the infrastructure of an AI network, Let's put it this way. There is a big difference. I believe that the influence of AI in our lives from a leisure work standpoint and basically just doing all simple tasks that we're going to walk away from so that we stay mainly more creative, managing and supervising and things like that, would give us the ability to be influenced by AI. And if you have implant managing your physiology so that your health is monitored by an AI infrastructure and a network, so that it tells you, oh, you don't have enough nutrition today, you might want to drink or eat this. Or, you're not exercising enough, so you need to go and exercise a little bit more. Or, I think that your heart rate is not doing very well. We're going to give you X in a syringe, thing, and it's going to make you feel better. If you have all those things influencing human beings, we are becoming controlled.
Yes. So just to be clear, that's actually being controlled by another human via robots. A human is the one that programs. Where I was leading with that is that robotics, artificial intelligence, and that's the world that we live in, is absolutely phenomenal. And the fact of the matter is, robots will never have the level of intelligence to take over the world. There's always going to be Dr. Evil behind it that's going to leverage it to make good for him or herself to control the mankind, or somebody good that's going to be fighting for the good. The notion that's out there. Okay, good. So that notion that's out there that robots are going to take over the world is not right. It's going to be a human behind all of it.
I mean, I think at some point you can certainly foresee a scenario under which it goes beyond just programming repeatable actions, and you can actually, to a certain extent, program, emotional elements. You can program inference and decision making that, is manipulatable outside of human intervention. You can certainly foresee a scenario where that's the case.
Yeah, that's really like predictive, whereby if and but in this scenario make this decision. So still, or the function of programming.
But I'm going to give two examples. Wait, I just want to get two examples of this. So you have Teslas, right? You have Elon Musk, and he's the biggest kind of data mining operation in history is these Teslas and how they become more intelligent. They know everything about your how you're driving. So when they become autonomous, theoretically they get smarter and smarter and smarter, and do kind of predictive methods in order to do that. There's a show that was on Amazon Prime. What's the name of that show? Called Upload. I don't know if any of you are familiar, right? Yeah, so the sense of this Upload is you're living in a future where everything is autonomous. You're not driving your own car. You're in a car that's run by some corporation. Right. And before you, the concept of the show is before you die. I don't want to plug the show, but it's actually kind of interesting topic. If you are like terminally ill or you're about to die, you can, instead of pulling the plug and allowing someone to die, you can upload to some database, and then you still exist. There's this separation between the digital and the real world. It is a brilliant concept given, where we are realistically today, but completely manipulatable by kind of, evildoers or whatever, evil corporations or the people that the Elon Musks of the world that control all of these, seemingly, technology focused industries that can be manipulated by someone that has, maybe not the most, the greatest intentions.
Whether it's the future, whether it's today, we still have the same issue. People who are not always well-meaning, controlling whatever it is that they have their fingertip on. And it's part of why I said earlier, I think one of the biggest challenges we're going to have is how do we apply some ethical consideration to everything that is going to go on in science and technology. Think about bioengineering. Think about all the things that we can do in the name of good or in the name of bad, just with one single field. And we have so many to deal with the changes that are happening today.
You have an entire population that thinks that Bill Gates created COVID and 5G is what caused COVID and all that. So you can certainly see where this interaction between, the world of technology and just, I think, people's inherent fear of progress, causes them to think crazy thoughts.
Yeah, and this is this is really the big issue. Progress can be full of opportunities for us. It can also be full of drawbacks and potential pitfalls. And how do we manage that? But then again, I think that what is happening in the world today is really exciting in that from a technology and science standpoint, not from a pandemic standpoint, obviously, because, no one needed this. The stress on our families, the loss of lives, the economic downturn, all that is absolutely terrible. But unfortunately, I think it's also something that was in a way foreseeable because of the way we live and the way the world is so interconnected. And unfortunately, we don't have enough barriers against illnesses like this to deal with that.
Just out of curiosity, with all the data that we have and being on this talk for artificial intelligence and telemedicine, so on and so forth, and we've accumulated so much data over the years.
Yeah.
The human autonomy, there's so many moving factors, not like technology. Technology is constantly evolving and moving in so many different directions. Don't you think we should actually have had a solution of some sort for COVID-19 by now? The last vaccine that was developed took over 4 years, and that was the late 60s. We're in 2020, and we are nowhere close to identifying how to fix this problem.
It's a good question, and unfortunately, I'm not a biologist, and I'm not in the medical field. So we don't realize the complexities probably that are happening as the virus evolves. And that's part of the issues that I think they face. Whether or not we should have a vaccine for this virus is for me not so much the question. It's what comes before we get this vaccine. How do we manage what's happening today? And I think that we could do much better.
So what would you do differently?
Well,
what wouldn't you do differently? Maybe.
I'm going to get in trouble here. I would probably have reacted a heck of a lot faster. But it's insight. In insight, we can say so many things. I think that prevention of reopening, for instance, some of the states, that happened way too soon. They pushed the envelope. The government wanted to reopen for business, and of course, the economy is important. But if you cannot get a control over this virus, then look at what we're doing now. We're backtracking. And it's costing more money. It's costing more time. It's costing more jobs because of it.
That's the thing. The idea that, you look at the way European countries and some of the other countries in the world handled it as kind of a national problem, as opposed to this being like, you could say it was 50 individual countries, but really there were locales within cities that were behaving differently than other locales based on like the feeling of, the people in charge. So this notion that you are going to be able to control something nationally by having 50 or more, like hundreds of disparate responses, where it's like whack-a-mole, right? If you knock it down in one area, people are just traveling between locations, right? So if you have a flare-up in Texas, and those people, before you are able to identify those, are now traveling all over the place and might, are spreading this virus by, traveling interstate because we don't have walls around our states. It should be obvious. It's not really a hindsight of 2020 thing. It should be obvious that you either have a national response or you don't have a national response. And if you don't, you should expect where it's going to be, one place is going to control it, the other place isn't going to control it. And, the metrics by which we're determining success, which is, number of new daily cases and deaths and hospitalizations, are going to continue to go up because it's only spreading.
Yeah, it is. And also, I think there is an issue of, that brings another point. While government can govern and provide guidelines and laws to circumvent issues like we are facing today, it is also our individual responsibilities to behave in such a way that we care for each other. We care for our neighbors, our friends, our families, and we don't spread this virus. Unfortunately, something happened in the last 5 years where we have lost some of the moral compass that we used to have in America, that we used to have in the world, where now anything is game. Anything, you can get away with pretty much anything or try to. And that's a very sad thing to see, because when you no longer have a moral compass as a society, what happens? It's the beginning of our demise. It's where we no longer live with laws, we live with chaos. It's a total change in behavior and patterns that are basically causing part of what we're facing today, with more of the same with the virus.
I'll only retort with one thing, where I think it's somewhere between 3.5 and 5 years ago. I can't put my finger on what happened.
I got you. I agree.
History repeats itself every 300 years or so. That this does happen. It's kind of like Mother Nature's way of cleansing everything out as well.
Yeah. I mean, the next big thing would be what's happening in Antarctica and in the Arctics, with some of the climate change and some of the things that we're going to see. There might be more virus coming our way too because of that.
I mean, we had, I think a couple weeks ago, it was like it hit like 92 degrees in Siberia. And they're saying that, it's the permafrost is uncovering, they don't know what's coming out of the ground, over there.
Yeah. So I think we're beginning to see the downfall of all of our 20 past years action with respect to climate change. And there is not much we can do about that other than saying, hey, let's do something really, rather than just ignoring the issues.
Now I know how the smart dinosaurs felt.
Yeah. It's gonna impact all of us, unfortunately.
So you have a very diverse background. What would you do differently if you were to start your career all over again?
Oh, that's a really good question. There's some things that I did early on, choices I made that probably did not facilitate some of the journey I've had from an independent standpoint as a filmmaker or as an author. At the same time, I'm not sure that I would change my path. I may probably needed to make a few smarter choices.
I believe we all do that.
Yeah.
All of us do that.
But it all adds character, right? You wouldn't be who you are today unless you made those wrong decisions.
Yeah, exactly. You live and learn, I guess. But no, it was, I love where I am today. I wouldn't change where I am today. I would not change what I do today because really I do love writing and creating this wonderful world and basically looking at some way to help us in the future, help the planet in the future, even though, there are no answers. There is no right or wrong answer. There is no right or wrong path. Things are much more gray than black and white in that domain because there's so many factors that are involving the outcomes of what we do. But I would think that, staying as an independent for as long as I have probably was not one of the best choices. I should have, I had the opportunity to do a corporate career. I decided not to because I didn't want to. But probably it would have opened up different doors and probably got me to the outcome that I wanted faster. Let's put it this way. I would have saved some time.
What suggestion or advice would you have for the younger audience?
Okay.
Get into a corporate career as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I wouldn't do that.
Not necessarily. I wouldn't say that. I would say that the corporate path are now closing off for a lot of people. No, I think that if you're going to be working independently as an entrepreneur, which I've done pretty much my whole life, I would say remain open. Remain open to opportunities. Remain open to pivot. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they get into a groove and this is how they see it. This is what they want to do. They know better. You don't. That's part of why, as an entrepreneur, in order to be successful, you have to surround yourself with people who have skills you do not possess. And I think that your tribe is a really key factor to accelerating your success. So stay open.
We had a podcast that was released this past week, and it's these brothers that went from business to business, and they sold a couple of business. And one of the things they came up with that they said was a factor in their success that they had wished that they had invested in earlier was like a corporate coach. Like someone to come in to give them like the clear, unvarnished opinion, where it wasn't just people that worked for them telling them what they wanted to hear, but it was somebody trying to get them to make sense of in the corporate world. I mean, people have become accustomed to maybe having a psychologist or someone to help them with their personal lives, but for some reason you don't really think of that applying to your business life. And when you're on your own, you need to be the one that kind of invests in surrounding yourself with those types of people, whether it's, a coach that you hire or, joining an entrepreneurs group so you can surround yourself at least with other entrepreneurs. And
exactly.
It can be an incredibly lonely existence. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life as well. And, it's lonely because you don't know the way it's, supposed to happen. I don't know that there is like a one way. This is all more art than it is science. But, it's nice to learn from other people's experience, and you lose some of that when you don't have, a hierarchy that exists in the corporate world.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where, board of advisors come in, or they may not be in your business, but they come from a different kind of experience, and they can provide feedback as you try to make some choices and even maybe pivot, because pivoting today is just as important as the vision that you had before when you started your company. Things move so fast. So yeah, that's what I would say. It's important to have your tribe, to have people that you can relate to, ask questions to, disagree with, discuss things that you may not have thought of, reject ideas as well as accept some. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, it's the willingness to learn from others.
Yes.
And being open to holding someone's hand as well. I mean, I've had a fair amount of years in corporate America, and I would say I'm actually having a lot more fun being on the other side. Not necessarily sure.
It is a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I'm not necessarily sure that corporate America gave me that. I'm of the opinion that corporate America actually potentially held me back because I lost that voice in corporate America culture. Yeah. I ended up being somebody else's voice. You couldn't disagree in corporate America sitting in a boardroom because there was a bigger charter that you were probably not a part of. Yeah. So that comes with its own headache. Again, we say the grass is green on the other side. I believe, Phil, what you have done or what the brothers did to bring an outside perspective, and what you're saying, Dominique, to have an advisory board or some sort of a pack, like a wolf pack, right? That
yeah. The tribe. I call it a tribe, Your own tribe that can just beat you over the head when you go in the wrong direction. People who care about you, who care about your vision, who care about the company that you're building, who care about the result or the success you're going to have, and who are, of different opinions, sometimes are it's extremely important.
I'll give one shout out to corporate America, and that's the fact that it's, you can't overgeneralize it. I think that there's no question that there is a significant chunk of corporate America where you can get lost in the shuffle and it's difficult to have your own voice. But there are plenty of companies out there where people thrive because they're allowed their independent voices, because the culture within that organization gives them the freedom to be themselves, because there's not that fear of independence. And those are the companies that wind up being the most successful. And those are the companies that wind up being able to pivot and innovate in ways that you can't otherwise, because it's not, led by the iron fist of some, CEO that is, the only visionary and moves forward. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that corporate America also has transformed because the culture has shifted to be more open with employees, to be more open with the assets that they have and that they bring together along the way. And I think that's a really good thing. I don't know that we could have said that 10, 15, 20 years ago, but in the last, maybe 10 years ago, I think we've seen that with very successful companies. Yeah, it's corporate culture.
Absolutely. I mean, transformation. So we look at the current times, for instance, you go back even 6 months ago, a lot of corporate America used to count the efficiency or measure the efficiency by the number of bums in the seat, to now it's okay to work from home. We need you to work from home. We are in agreement with digital transformation. By the way, you guys are all a lot more productive than you were actually physical office space. So it's a mindset. It's a transition. I mean, unfortunately, events and incidents like that are always leading us into doing things the better way. Changing gears, I'm very interested to hear your perspective on 2098. I mean, we barely made it to 2020. Very interested to hear your perspective on 2098, and how do you see the future to be?
Wow.
Maybe I should bring my 3-year-old daughter in here, since she will be significantly more impacted by 2098 than I will.
You don't know that yet. You don't know that yet. I think health and science could really make our lives
back to the implant.
Back
to the implant. I'm going to live to 200.
Well,
you're going to have a nanobot plan too, Phil.
Yeah. I see us living in a smart city where everything is pretty much at our fingertips. Domestic bots taking care of all the things in the household that we need to have, transportation pods that fly, so fly cars are part of it, airways and skyways and skyscrapers that are basically providing food in their own environment so that the residents have access to their own local food. Rockets for us to travel from New York to Paris in an hour. Let's see what else.
Life on Mars?
Yeah, actually,
it sounds like a retirement.
Space hotels will be there. Vacation travel will be in space. For those of us who are interested. Let's see what else.
And they might open before some of our regular local hotels reopen.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see what else. I see a change in the way we feed ourselves with a lot more nutrients, for instance, in our food. There will be different kind of foods because climate change is going to have more tropical fruits available, for instance. The big shift is going to be in our work and leisures, where we can have virtual reality kind of games for us to play with, where we have everything pretty much on conference virtual screen. Any retails Locations are going to be gone. We're going to be doing that from our fingertips and basically buy from our screen whatever we see. Oh, I like the T-shirt you have on. Where can I buy it? And boom, we're going to have biofeedback in terms of what makes us happy, what does not. We're going to be able to integrate changes to our immediate environment on demand, basically. So that if I don't like blue in my color wall, I can change it to yellow and be happier. Those type of things. I don't know. There's so much.
That sounds like a holiday to me.
Yeah. You were
or retirement for that matter.
You're obviously a fan of sci-fi literature, going back to your early days, which brought you here. Is there something that you read back in the olden days? I can't even I don't know sci-fi authors that much that was kind of accurately depicted the world we live in today.
Pieces of different books depicted certain things that we are going to see in our evolution today. Obviously, I read all the classics, American sci-fi author Asimov and The Foundation and everything else. Also read French authors like Barjavel, which was a very big influence because I started reading about his work. They all, what I liked is that they all addressed some of the human issues in different ways, of course, but they addressed some of our moral impediments in a way vis-a-vis technology and some of the things that we probably are going to fight against, as well as some of the things that we're going to welcome more, simply because of who we are as human beings. We don't like change. We do not like transformation. We resist it, and sometimes even if it is for a good purpose, we have a hard time adapting to it as human. It's easy to be comfortable in what we know. It's not so easy to be comfortable with an unknown tomorrow. And that's part of what I think some of those books were great at, the conflicts, the betrayal, the difficulties, the changes in abilities. We will increase our abilities as we depend more and more on AI in many different ways.
So switching gears, any message for our listeners, the younger generation?
With the younger generation, you don't know it all. And
well, neither do we.
Even us, we don't know it all, which means that, again, remain open. For the older generation, which I think is probably the most stressful time in their lives, I want to say, look, there is hope. There is changes that will be coming that will make our lives easier. We just have to be a bit patient. And unfortunately, no, it's not going to be perfect. And no, we can't go back to where we were. But I think that there will be a time, hopefully soon, where we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So stay strong.
In your experience, and as you look at the future, and as you write, and you foresee 2098, what are some of the good things? We've got to look at the positive side. What are some of the good things that are going to come out of COVID-19?
Okay, I would say better healthcare system. That's the thing that I would see happening because of the situation that we faced. There's going to be some things that we're going to have to do in order to do better. And we are capable of doing better. And so from that standpoint, I see better healthcare, better lifestyle, the ability to do more things because we don't have to take care of little things, because AI will take care of those little things for us. So we're going to have maybe more time to learn, more time to enjoy ourselves, more time to be with our families, more time to do some of the things that we are struggling to maintain today because we have to multitask so much.
An improved quality of life.
Yeah. I think it's important.
It was great having you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciated that, and I've really enjoyed talking with both of you.
Again,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
This has been great. Nothing lasts forever. Markets will come back, currencies will rebound, businesses will go on, and we'll all move on. That could happen next week, next month, or next year. I'm confident that those who prepare rather than panic will come out of this stronger. Thank you for joining us. This has been brought to you by Nomad Futurist. Check us online at nomadfuturist.com.